Hello and welcome. I'm Rawia Alami and this is the Dailies, where we take a look at important news stories, reports, analyses and articles published in newspapers and media outlets across the world. All newspapers continue to cover President Trump's resumption of his trade wars, this time threatening higher tariffs on Canada in the middle of trade talks. American newspapers also focused on the suspension of 6 Secret Service agents in connection with the Trump assassination attempt last year, as well as the State Department's intention to begin layoffs in an effort to downsize government. We'll start with the New York Times, which published an interview with former Justice Department lawyer Erez Rouveni, who alleges that the Trump administration pressured legal staff to mislead judges and ignore court orders in pursuit of its deportation agenda. Rouveni, who was fired after defending a mistaken deportation, describes a culture where loyalty to the president's goals trumped legal ethics and due process. The report also points out that Rouveni provided Congress with communications that appear to show senior officials discussing the deliberate defiance of judicial rulings and misleading courts about deportation plans. While also DOJ leadership denies the accusations, Rouveni's testimony and supporting evidence have prompted congressional scrutiny and raised alarms about the erosion of legal norms and the ethical challenges faced by government attorneys under political pressure. While the New York Times reported on widespread abrupt terminations at the Justice Department and FBI, which left employees wondering if they will be next, it also reported on the American State Department's intention to begin layoffs in an effort to downsize government. The report highlights Secretary of State Marco Rubio's plans, of which he previously informed Congress, to cut more than 15% of the department's U.S. staff, nearly 2,000 jobs, in a move aimed at streamlining what leadership calls a bloated bureaucracy. The decision follows a Supreme Court ruling that cleared the way for mass layoffs across 19 agencies despite ongoing litigation. The piece also underscores the deep anxiety and declining morale among State Department employees, many of whom feel undervalued and frustrated, especially after working extra hours during recent crises. Some staff expressed relief that uncertainty around layoffs is finally ending, even as the cuts remain deeply unpopular. To the Wall Street Journal now, which, like many other American newspapers, reported on President Trump's threats to impose a 35% tariff on Canadian imports starting August 1st. It also published an analytical report previewing President Trump's unprecedented tariff policies, which are used as a tool for advancing U.S. political priorities and often unrelated to trade. The report highlights how Trump has imposed or threatened steep tariffs on countries such as Brazil, Canada, and Colombia, leveraging access to the American market to push for outcomes on issues like Bolsonaro trial and the fentanyl crisis. The piece also quotes experts who note that this breaks with decades of global trade norms where tariffs were reserved for economic disputes. The report underscores growing concern among economists, businesses, and even some Republicans who warn that unpredictable tariff threats create market instability and legal risks. It concludes that Trump's approach signals a major shift away from the post-war rules-based trading system, raising questions about the future of global economic cooperation. In its weekly situation report, Foreign Policy reviewed President Trump's recent pivot in his approach to Russian President Vladimir Putin, marked by unusually blunt criticism and renewed support for Ukraine. Trump's frustration with Putin's refusal to negotiate peace and continued attacks on Ukraine led to sharper rhetoric and the approval of more defensive weapons for Kiev. The report also notes this is a significant change from Trump's historically conciliatory stance towards Putin and skepticism about aiding Ukraine. Experts also and officials see Trump's shift as a recognition that his business-style diplomacy has failed with Putin. However, the review emphasizes ongoing uncertainty as both Ukrainian and European leaders remain cautious about Trump's unpredictability and whether his tougher stance will translate into consistent long-term U.S. support. Moving on to The Times, which published a report reviewing the recent Britain-France summit, highlighting it as the most significant bilateral meeting since Brexit. The summit produced a one-in, one-out migrant return scheme, allowing the UK to send some Channel migrants back to France while accepting others with family ties in Britain, a move leaders hope will disrupt smuggling networks. The report also details new defense agreements, including joint nuclear coordination and plans to expand the Franco-British expeditionary force to 50,000 troops for NATO operations. Additional also cooperation includes joint missile production, development of backup GPS systems, and enhanced support for Ukraine. The report concludes that while Brexit-related tensions remain, the summit marks a new era of pragmatic collaboration on security, migration, and European stability. Nathalie Segoun asked in Le Monde today if Macronism will outlive Macron himself. This piece explores the uncertain legacy of French President Emmanuel Macron as his second term nears its end. The debate was ignited when government spokesperson Sophie Primas suggested Macronism might soon end, reflecting broader doubts about its future. The report also argues that Macron's political movement, built around his personal leadership and lacking a strong party structure or even a clear doctrine, may struggle to survive without him. Successors like Gabriel Attal and Edouard Philippe are distancing themselves from Macron's brand, while critics claim Macronism is inseparable from the man himself. Segoun concludes that although the traditional left-right divide is unlikely to return, the political center could indeed persist, yet only if it adapts and moves beyond Macron's personalist approach. In an exclusive report, the Jerusalem Post provides an in-depth look at IDF Chief of Staff Aal Zamir, tracing his journey from an ambitious armored corps recruit to Israel's top military strategist. He is indeed credited with masterminding Israel's recent successful campaign against Iran, significantly disrupting its nuclear and missile capabilities. The report underscores Zamir's advocacy for a larger tech-driven IDF, as well as the need for Israel to be prepared to act independently. The report concludes that his doctrine of combining strategic audacity with restraint is reshaping Israel's defense philosophy for the future. Away from politics, The Telegraph published a report today reviewing the significant impact Natasha Archer has had on the Princess of Wales's public image over her 15-year tenure as aide and stylist. Archer, often called Catherine's secret weapon, also guided the princess through key milestones from her royal wedding to motherhood and health challenges, while also orchestrating a transformation in her style. The report explains how, under Archer's influence, Catherine evolved from cautious traditional outfits to polished modern looks that have defined her global fashion status and sparked the Kate effect. Also, the report highlights Archer's behind-the-scenes professionalism and discretion, which elevated both the princess's wardrobe and the visibility of British designers. It concludes that as Archer indeed leaves to start her own consultancy, her legacy sets a higher bar for royal style and support staff alike. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.